What's up, brothers? So I actually was not planning on making this video. Recently, I had decided that I want to take a little tea break from caffeine, a tolerance break, right? Before I even decided to do this, my brother's wife had recently taken a break from coffee, and she just been having like a coffee a day. I'd been having 2 energy drinks a day. I'd have one in the morning, right? About 60 minutes after waking up. That's when you're supposed to have it, about 60 minutes after. And then one midday after like the first crash, right? But she had headaches after stopping caffeine use for a day when she was only having about 100 milligrams. So I was like, oh shit, all right, well, this is gonna be difficult. And I wake up this morning, day number 1, and I have a headache, a strong headache. I'm going to focus on my task, creating a resource for my guys, and I don't feel focused. I don't feel like I could flow when I speak, right? My dopamine, more or less, feels fried. Now, I want to come on here and talk about this because I don't think it's talked about enough of how caffeine is a drug. Overall, I'm pretty gray in this area, right? I don't have a strong stance. What I do have a strong stance on is that any drug, if abused, leads to dependency, leads to addiction, leads to negative effects, leads to down-regulation of your dopamine, which is what I'm experiencing right now, a down-regulation of my dopamine. So what caffeine actually does is it blocks adenosine receptors, right? The feeling in your brain that tells you you're tired, right? And so it suppresses those, just makes it so the signal isn't as strong, they're still there. And then that's why you get the midday crash, they come later, right? In addition, it floods the brain with dopamine, right? Dopamine is responsible for focus, for drive, for discipline, more or less. And so when you're doing this to your brain, what your brain does is it downregulates your natural response of dopamine, natural response of adenosine. And so my baseline of dopamine gets dependent on caffeine to be at a stable level. Now, when you look at caffeine, you think, okay, where can it be of use? Once a week, 50 milligrams, you're not gonna have any dependency at all. A couple times a week, 100 milligrams, not really either. Once you get into every day, then your brain doesn't get a break, right? It starts depending on caffeine for its dopamine. Now, caffeine is a sneaky one, but really anything we do that gives us a good feeling in the moment or a good feeling after we do the thing is going to be playing with our dopamine. And any pleasurable activity that doesn't require effort is going to, over time, if used often, down-regulate our dopamine receptors, right? So take cocaine, for example, right? An extreme. If your baseline of dopamine is here, right? Your baseline meaning your average level of drive, motivation, discipline. If your baseline is right here, when you take a hit of cocaine, it spikes above baseline pretty quickly, about 2x above baseline. But here's the thing, dopamine is inversely related, so then it's gonna drop just as far below. Now you're down here, you feel like trash, right? And it's gonna take some time to get back to baseline. Now you get back to baseline, right? Do another hit of cocaine, all the way down. All right, now you're down here, and you wanna get back to baseline quick. So you take another hit of cocaine to get back to baseline, and then you drop even further below, XYZ. Now, as you do this more often, your dopamine baseline in life starts to lower. And then it's harder to derive pleasure from life and even cocaine, right? Which is where addiction comes from, which is where a dependency comes from. And this is the same cycle with pornography, with weed, with social media, right? With any drug of choice, with masturbation, gambling, really any pleasurable activity. So you'll see crackheads on the street and you'll say, how the hell do they get there, right? And I'd say we'd at least be able to cut that population in half if people had a clear understanding of what dopamine was. If people had a clear understanding of why, when you do pleasurable things, smoke cigarettes, smoke weeds, take caffeine, do meth, do cocaine, right? You're overall degrading your quality of life, your drive, your discipline, right? And needing more and more of that thing to achieve the same high. It's like we're not really taught these things. We're not really taught how they work, and it's so simple. It's so simple. Now, on the other side of it, you have dopamine from effortful activity, from going to the gym, from taking cold showers, from doing difficult activities, deep work, right? Runs, meditation, reading. Anything where you have to go through some sort of discomfort, whether that's mentally or physically, you're gonna get a long release of dopamine after. Anytime we give effort, our brain is designed to release dopamine, but it's not a spike. It goes up and then it slowly comes down, so it does not decrease our baseline. This is why you feel so good after working out. That and just the feeling of accomplishment. So now we have two things. We have pleasurable activities and uncomfortable activities. Pleasurable activities, anytime we give into them, we get a lowering of our baseline of dopamine and a crash after, always, right? Junk food included in that. Now, effortful activity, uncomfortable activity, we get a prolonged increase of, now effortful activity, difficult activity, uncomfortable activity, we get a prolonged increase of dopamine, and our baseline over time is gonna raise. Okay for you guys, look like Batman. And as our baseline raises, it becomes easier to do the uncomfortable task. And when it becomes easier to do uncomfortable tasks, and you keep doing them, your baseline keeps raising, your discipline keeps raising, your drive keeps raising, and over time you experience an expansion of joy in life because you're willing to do the things that are required to get there, right? And along the path, even though those things are hard in the moment, the things that raise your baseline, you learn to love them. Now understanding this, every time I'm like, this is effortful, this is difficult, run in the rain, tough workout, but guess what? I'm raising my baseline, I'm gonna get a good dopamine hit after this, right? Every single time. And so if you understand this, you understand at a neurological level, doing hard things is just gonna make your life better in the short term and the long term, every single time. It's not even like a woo-woo universal thing. You do uncomfortable, you grow as a man. That's true, right? That is true, that's a huge aspect of it, but just the simple science of it is so basic, it's so powerful, that if we just understand this concept, we will know why we are depressed, why we are anxious, why we have no discipline, why we have to quit out vices, why we have to add good habits into our life. Simple, y'all. Probably gonna make a whiteboard, breaking this down, a whiteboard video on it. I just feel like it's worth it. It's that impactful. This concept completely changed my life when I was most down and bad. I use this concept every single day when I'm thinking about doing pleasure versus effortful activity, right? Every single time. Or understanding why life is highs and lows. Guys, this is why life is highs and lows, right? Dopamine goes like this. It's inversely related. When it goes up, it's got to come down, right? And it's not just in the moments and the hours. It's in the weeks and the days and in the months, right? And so understand when you are in those low dopamine, those low drive, the low motivation points, is that the best way to get out is not do what your body tells you, which is, smoke that cigarette, drink that caffeine. It's to go on a run, go on a workout, right? Just focus even though it doesn't feel like it, right? Do some meditation. And so if you have been abusing your dopamine, don't worry about it, right? We can fix it now. There's something called a dopamine detox, where if you cut out the things that give you instant gratification, that spike your dopamine way above baseline, then lower it, and then lower your baseline. If you've been doing a lot of those things, all you have to do is go through a period of commitment, right? It's not easy to do this for many months at a time, but it's easy to do it for a couple days, right? It's easy because you can use this information, this motivation, this realizing how much it's gonna change your life, and put all of that in the next couple days. Cut out the drugs, the junk food, the porn, right? Pretty much don't do anything but exercise, read, meditate, spend time with family, right? Stay off the music. If you got to go on your computer for work, you can do that, but nothing else. Stay off the social media, and you will feel your dopamine repairing itself. And if you've never done this before and you've been abusing your dopamine receptors, just a couple days will do you absolute wonders, and you'll experience the power of dopamine. And this is what I'm doing right now, guys. I'm just doing it with caffeine, because caffeine is one of the only things that I actually abuse my dopamine with. Maybe social media from time to time, not nearly as bad as I used to, maybe like 30 to 45 minutes of scrolling, which is way more than it should be. But I'm doing it with you guys, so try it out. I'm glad you understand this. You can ask any questions in the comments. I'll answer them. You can follow me on Instagram. I drop game like this all the time. That's where I drop most of my game. I'm trying to get out here more for you guys because I feel like long form is where more of the people who actually want to learn are. So love you boys. Talk soon.